When we talk about Israel, we immediately think of some specific tourist attractions, such as the Wailing Wall, mosques, the famous Dead Sea, among others that are worth a visit. But what many people don't know is that this small country hides curiosities that go far beyond its traditional fame. Did you know that you can't cut down a tree here without a rabbi's permission? Or that there's a new year just for them? What if I told you that meat has to go through a religious ritual before it reaches the table? If you're curious to find out the reason behind these peculiarities and other surprising stories, stick with us until the end. Today, Bello Mundo is going to introduce you to some of Israel's pearls, and the last one will make your jaw drop. Number 1. Location and geographical data. Israel is one of those places that can surprise you straight away. Located in the Middle East, on the east coast of the Mediterranean Sea, this country is smaller than the state of New Jersey in the United States. But what it has in terms of size, it makes up for in diversity. Want an example? In the morning, you could be skiing on the hills of Mount Hermon, and in the afternoon, relaxing on a beach bathed by the Mediterranean, all in the same day. This striking geographical contrast is just the tip of the iceberg, or rather, the mountain. Israel is in a strategic position that connects it to 3 continents: Africa, Asia, and Europe. This has always placed it at the center of cultural and economic exchanges throughout history. And this mix is still palpable today. In just a few hours, you can go from Bedouin villages full of traditions to ultra-modern cities like Tel Aviv, with its skyscrapers and trendy beaches. Speaking of beaches, the country doesn't disappoint. The Mediterranean coastline is perfect for surfing, diving, or just getting a tan. In the south, the Red Sea is a spectacle with incredible coral reefs, while the Sea of Galilee offers a setting full of history and spirituality. But let's face it, nothing draws more attention than the Dead Sea. Firstly, it's the lowest point on Earth, at an impressive 430 meters below sea level. Secondly, its waters are so salty that it's impossible to sink. You literally float effortlessly. It's an otherworldly experience. What's more, its mineral-rich mud has become synonymous with beauty and health, with products and treatments that are famous the world over. Number 2. Startup Nation. Israel is known as the nation of startups, and it's no coincidence. With more than 6,000 startups spread across the country, it has one of the highest concentrations per capita in the world. And that's even more impressive when you remember that the country has a population of just 9 million people. Israeli innovations cover a multitude of areas, from military technology to health, agriculture, and transportation. Want an example that's probably in your daily life? Waze, the navigation app that changed the way we drive, was born there. But it doesn't stop there. Drip irrigation systems, cybersecurity solutions, and advances in artificial intelligence also bear the Israeli stamp. And speaking of artificial intelligence, have you heard of Orcam? This is a startup that has created an incredible device that allows visually impaired people to read text and recognize faces and objects. But how did such a small country manage to reach this level of innovation? It all starts at an early age. Schools encourage technological skills and programming from an early age. Then there's compulsory military service, where many young people learn to deal with cutting-edge technology and take this knowledge into their civilian careers. And of course, the government invests heavily in research and development, creating the perfect environment for ideas to flourish. And it's not just in startups that Israel excels. The country can also be called the land of engineers. With the highest number of engineers per capita in the world, Israel leads the way in technology, medicine, and security. Renowned universities such as the Weizmann Institute and the Technion train specialists who put the country on the global innovation map. The impact of this training can be seen in everything from defense systems such as Iron Dome, Israel's powerful anti-missile system, to advances in biotechnology. And the results speak for themselves. The country has collected more than a dozen Nobel Prizes in scientific fields. Number 3. Leader in water desalination. And obviously, if we're talking about technology, engineering, and innovation, if there's one thing that deserves to be highlighted, it's desalination. The country is one of the world leaders in this technology, transforming seawater into drinking water with impressive efficiency. Today, more than 80% of the water used for domestic consumption in Israel comes from its desalination plants, a feat that few countries in the world manage to achieve. The star of this system is the Sorek plant, which is not only the largest in the country, but also the most efficient in the world. This engineering colossus not only supplies Israel, but also serves as a model for other nations facing water crises. And let's face it, that's essential for a country where the arid climate and limited water resources leave no room for error. But the innovation doesn't stop there. Israel also leads the way in recycling wastewater. Around 90% of this water is treated and reused, mainly for agricultural irrigation, a rate that puts the country light years ahead of anyone else in the world. Number 4. Tel Aviv, the vegan capital of the world. And now let's talk about something everyone loves: food. Our next destination is Tel Aviv, and this city does not disappoint when it comes to good food. As well as being known for its incredible beaches and lively nightlife, Tel Aviv also boasts a rather unexpected title. It is considered the vegan capital of the world. With more than 400 vegan and vegetarian restaurants scattered throughout its streets, the city has the highest concentration of these establishments per capita. For those who are vegan or just want to try something different, Tel Aviv is a true gastronomic paradise. The menus there are a show apart. You can find vegan versions of Israeli classics such as creamy hummus and spicy shakshuka, as well as adapted international options such as vegan sushi and burgers made from plants that look like real meat. There's so much variety that even non-vegans are tempted. But as we said at the beginning of the video, this land is full of diversity, and that includes the food too. So if you're a meat lover, Israel won't let you down. There are options with meat, but most are only eaten if they go through a ritual. Number 5. Kosher or kosher food. If you've ever been to Israel, you've probably seen signs in cafeterias or any other establishment with the word kosher, which is also known as kasher. But what does it actually mean? The word kosher or kosher means appropriate in Hebrew and refers to a set of dietary laws based on the Torah. These precepts dictate what can and cannot be eaten, how food should be prepared, and even how kitchen utensils should be used. One of the best-known rules is the separation of meat and milk. When it comes to meat, the process begins with the slaughter of the animal, which must be carried out by a specialized rabbi. This ritual, known as shechita, includes a specific prayer and uses techniques to ensure that the animal doesn't suffer. The knife, for example, needs to be perfectly sharp so that the cut is quick and precise, causing the animal to immediately lose consciousness. If there is any sign of suffering, the meat is no longer considered kosher. After slaughter, all the blood must be removed, as this is forbidden by Jewish law. This is done through a meticulous process, which includes salting the meat with coarse salt to absorb any residue. And if you're wondering, yes, It is possible to eat rare meat in Israel as long as it is quickly put on the fire and is ready to eat. But the care doesn't stop there. All preparation, cutting, storage, and even packaging must be supervised by a rabbi to ensure that standards are met. The same goes for industrialized products, such as sweets, drinks, and even toothpaste, which receive a special seal indicating that they comply with the rules. And there's more. One of the most striking rules of kosher food is the ban on mixing meat with milk, whether in preparation, consumption, or even in the utensils used. This means that cheeseburgers or steak parmigiana are practically non-existent in Israel. In kosher kitchens, meat and dairy products have separate pans, plates, and even sinks. In addition, you must wait at least 6 hours after eating meat before consuming any dairy-based food. For this reason, parve desserts, those without milk, are very common. Number 6. Barbecue everywhere. And while we're on the subject of meat, everyone knows that in America, whether in the United States, Uruguay, or Brazil, the barbecue dominates special occasions such as birthdays, get-togethers, or just that gathering of friends, right? In fact, everything is a reason to put some meat on the grill and have a cold beer. But did you know that barbecue is also a strong tradition in Israel? That's right, Israelis also have their own way of celebrating around the grill, and there it's called mangal. During holidays such as Yom HaAtzmaut, Israel's Independence Day, parks and beaches are filled with families and friends gathered around the grill, grilling meats, vegetables, and even the famous pita bread. It's a time of connection where everyone comes together to enjoy good food and good company. The Israeli barbecue is simpler but full of flavor. The meat, usually cut into smaller pieces, is seasoned with local spices such as za'atar, cumin, and paprika, and goes straight onto the portable grill. No hours of roasting or giant cuts, like in Brazil, for example. In Israel, it's all about practicality. And of course, you can't miss the typical side dishes, such as fresh salads, hummus, and tahini. And don't be alarmed by the toothpicks. In many cultures, picking your teeth can be considered impolite, but not here. Israelis consider it normal and hygienic to use toothpicks in public without feeling embarrassed or rude. Just to give you an idea, there are decorative toothpicks that are even available in special packaging to carry in your purse. Number 7. No throwing bread away. Still on the subject of food, there is one food that is almost sacred here: bread. Throwing bread away in Israel is not just wasteful, it's considered disrespectful. This goes back to the history of the Jewish people, who faced famine and exile, in which bread was often the only thing available to satisfy hunger. And you know what's interesting? If there is bread left over, it doesn't go straight into the garbage can. The custom is to put it in a bag and leave it next to the garbage can, not in it. That way, anyone who needs it, be it to feed animals or to use as fishing bait, can pick it up without any problems. It's a simple gesture, but one that reflects enormous respect and care. In addition, many synagogues and communities have food collection points to avoid waste. It's a practical and supportive way of dealing with something so symbolic. Number 8. Everyone carries a gun. Anyone arriving in Israel for the first time is surprised to see the profusion of young men with powerful M16 rifles on their backs, many of them in moments of leisure and relaxation. In this image you're looking at, for example, we see a carefree, well-armed woman waiting for her drink in a bar. These ones, for example, are doing their normal shopping at the mall. And these girls here on the beach, wearing nothing but bikinis and their guns. Surreal, isn't it? But over there, it's completely commonplace. If you think this has something to do with the recent conflicts, you're wrong. This practice goes back a long way and has a clear explanation: compulsory military service. In Israel, men and women serve in the defense forces, known by the acronym IDF, for at least 2.5 years. And one of the most important rules is to never separate from the weapon, not even during leisure time. This custom intensified after the October 7th attacks, when the government called up more than 360,000 reservists to serve in Gaza. But there is a practical reason behind this rule: to prevent the rifles from falling into the wrong hands or causing accidents. And just to reassure you, the rifles circulating in the streets are unloaded. Now, here's an interesting fact. Despite so many armed soldiers, the carrying of weapons by civilians in Israel is very restricted. Unlike the United States, where bearing arms is a constitutional right, in Israel it is seen as a privilege. To get a license, you have to meet very specific criteria, such as having served in the army for at least 2 years in a command position. Even then, you are only allowed to own 1 pistol, with an annual limit of 50 rounds of ammunition. Number 9. Jewish and Gregorian calendars. Moving on, let's talk about time. To be more specific, calendars. In Israel, the calendar is not just a tool for scheduling appointments. It reflects tradition and culture. Here, 2 systems coexist: the Gregorian, used in the West, and the Jewish, whose count is based on Adam's creation. According to tradition, the Jewish calendar begins on October 7th, 3761 BC. So, while we are in the year 2024 in the Gregorian calendar, in the Jewish one we are in the year 5777, or even a year more, depending on the season, since the new year falls between September and October. But what really stands out is that the Jewish calendar is lunisolar, i.e., it combines the cycles of the sun and the moon to calculate the months and festivals. In addition, the days begin differently, not at midnight, but with the first star in the sky, and end at sunset. For example, Shabbat, the Holy Sabbath, which theoretically should begin at midnight on Saturday, actually starts on Friday night as soon as it gets dark and the first star rises. Even the week has a different rhythm. It starts on Saturday night, so it's common and polite to wish people good week on Saturday night. Funny, isn't it? Number 10. Cutting down trees only with special permission. Continuing our journey through the curiosities of Israel, let's now talk about the lung of humanity: trees. Unlike anywhere else in the world, cutting down a fruit tree here isn't as simple as picking up an axe. According to the Torah, trees that bear fruit are sacred. After all, they represent life, and their fruit is seen as a true blessing. That's why anyone who wants to get rid of one needs a good reason and, most importantly, the permission of a rabbi. Yes, you heard right. Without a rabbi's approval, no cutting. It's an ancient tradition based on Deuteronomy, which protects these trees at all costs. The idea is that as long as a tree is bearing fruit, it is still useful to the world, and to cut it down unnecessarily would be like wasting a gift. So, if you have one of these in your yard and you think it's taking up too much space, or you simply want to remove it, you'll need to justify why very well. And be prepared, because not just any excuse will do. And while we're on the subject of trees, here's another curiosity. Did you know that in Israel there's a New Year's Day for trees? In the Jewish calendar, the 15th of Shevat is known as Tu B'Shevat, the New Year of the trees. This is when the first trees begin to blossom after the winter, marking the beginning of a new cycle of fruit production. As well as being symbolic, this date also plays an important role in the region's agricultural practices. In Jewish tradition, fruit production in the Holy Land is linked to the concept of agricultural tithes, which are portions of the harvest set aside for religious, communal, or charitable purposes. These tithes follow a special 7-year cycle called Shemitah, in which each year has a specific destination for production. Tu B'Shavat acts as a watershed in this cycle. The fruits that begin to sprout before this date belong to the previous agricultural year, while those that appear afterwards are considered part of the next year. This ensures that the tithes are accounted for in a clear and orderly manner within the established cycle. The celebration includes the consumption of fruits typical of the region, such as grapes, figs, pomegranates, olives, and dates. And there is also a tradition that compares the human being to a tree, highlighting the importance of growing, blossoming, and bearing fruit throughout life. And that concludes our journey through Israel's fascinating curiosities. We want to know what you think. Tell us in the comments what surprised you the most. If you like exploring unique stories and discovering cultures that combine modernity and tradition, keep following us. Our Bello Mundo is full of incredible stories waiting to be told. To those of you who have followed us so far, thank you very much, and we look forward to seeing you on your next adventure.